All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, What's New with Robot? Thanks everybody for joining us. Time for an update on all things new with the robot product line, and more specifically, what's happened in the last half of 2019 and the first half of 2020, and what's planned for the near term and maybe even beyond that. I like to say that Robot never takes a vacation, never calls in sick, and never has a bad day. And I hope Robots had your back over the past couple of months as we've all been wrestling with working remote and increasing demands from the perspective of the IT infrastructure. So my name is Chuck Losinski, and I'm the Director of Technical Solutions here at HelpSystems, celebrating 21 years with HelpSystems this year. Good morning, everybody. Randy, how are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to join us, and it's a great day here in Colorado.
Good. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Chuck. Also great to be here, broadcasting from Prior Lake, Minnesota, my home and my office away from the office. So excited to be here as an IBM Power Champion and, a longtime user of the robot products and involved in development of them. And very excited to also have Randy with us from MPG. At some point in time, he's probably looked at your performance data.
That's right.
That's probably
right.
true.
And, yeah, and arguably maybe the most important person here, because he's the guy that makes things happen with Robot, and that's Tim Woodfield, our software development manager for all of our power systems products. Good morning, Tim.
Thanks, Chuck. I appreciate that. I was looking to say who else is on this meeting. I was, well, who are you thinking about? But yeah, so I'm the director of development for all the products that run on power, and yeah, and I love talking about robots. So thanks for having me, guys.
Tim, you've been a customer and a developer in your lifetime with HelpSystems, so great to have your experience with us.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's a unique perspective being both a customer and doing the development work. So
awesome.
Yeah, good, really good point. Okay. Tom.
So Chuck, here we talk about our portfolio of products. We've kind of grouped them into solution areas with job scheduling. Most people know when they think robot, a lot of times when people say robot, they're really referring to robot schedule. Certainly over the years, we've enhanced that because it's no longer just IBM for many of us. We have Robot Schedule Enterprise, which can be plugged in, and now I can automate things on Windows, Unix, and Linux and make Robot Schedule your enterprise scheduler. Certainly we can participate with other schedulers, but we can be the target. Interactive scheduling with Robot Replay, and of course alerting, as we'll see that in each of the different solution sets. Message management's another thing we've been doing for a long time. I mean, between scheduling and messaging, those are the two things that allow you to get out of the data center, in my mind. The real big step to unattended operations is making sure that you can monitor the system 24 hours a day and making sure you can run the batch and all the other critical resources 24 hours a day. From an HA perspective, HelpSystems did step into the HA arena about 4 years ago with Robot HA, and we'll talk a bit about that today. We still do backup and recovery, tape management for people, and alerting there too. We'll talk about performance monitoring, which is real-time monitoring, adding that graphical dashboard to your organization with Robot Monitor, very important piece that we added in through acquisition probably about 9 years ago. Robot Space for disk storage, we still do performance and memory tuning and alerting there. And then Randy's along today to talk about capacity, performance analysis, helping you with sizing. There are some businesses that have expanded during this epidemic, and certainly sizing your systems, and not only IBM but really anything power, AIX, Unix, BIOS, Linux. We can do all those things with the Performance Navigator product. And then to wrap it out, report management. We realize if you were dependent on reports that printed in the office, what are you doing when everybody's working from home? We can help turn that into an electronic report management system. So back to you, Chuck, for the polling question.
All right, folks, so we always like to get some input, and the first one is, which robot products are you using? So are you in the robot schedule product set, robot console for message automation that might include robot network and robot alert? And there we go, now we're launched. robot schedule, robot console, robot monitor, or performance navigator, robot HA, robot reports possibly. We're going to talk a little bit about a new interface that's available or just about available for robot reports today in our Insight interface. And all right, looks like we're getting quite a mix. We'll leave this up for maybe another 10 seconds or so. And actually, no surprise, Tom, like you said, scheduling and message monitoring to get you out of the data center, those are turning out to be numbers 1 and 2.
Yeah, Chuck,
All
I
right,
just
let's
thought of
close the
something
poll.
too to remind
Yeah.
people is you may have gotten an email from us this week called IBM Insiders. That is not a spam or a what do you want to call it, phishing attempt. We have started a community around the power products, which would include PowerTech and Robot and SQL and everything else. So I just wanted to remind everybody about that, that's with us, because I did get a couple of customers email me on that. So back to you, Chuck, on the results.
Well, obviously, no surprise here. Scheduling turned out to be number 1 in terms of the people in our audience. Message monitoring, performance navigator, or robot monitor.
Oh, yeah, interesting
HA,
results.
well,
kind of expected,
yeah.
but interesting.
Yeah, it's good to see. Good to see across the board. All right. And so our agenda looks like this. We're going to start out talking about the major robot updates that have taken place literally over the last 12 months, but we're going to, focus more so on maybe on the second half or the first part of this year. Tim's going to take us through the robot roadmap. We're going to talk about then specifically robot HA. We're going to talk about HelpSystems Insite, our browser interface, talking about how robot console and soon robot reports will be part of that solution. Robot Monitor had a major new release, now supporting Linux, amongst other things. Performance Navigator enhancements, that took place. Randy's going to talk to us about that. And then Tim's going to take us through Independence Day coming up, RBTSYSLIB Independence and what that means. So Tim, let's start with this. What's been going on? First half of 2020, last half of 2019.
Sure, thanks, Chuck. Yeah, so let's we'll dive right into it here. So Robot HA, we're sitting on 12.09 right now. And really lots of that work went into 12. There's been a couple releases of that, 12.08 and 12.09. We came out with the ability to see your apply jobs under a unique name. It was very confusing to know what was going on within those apply jobs on the target system. So we made that a unique name so that it makes it easier to manage and understand what's happening there. The second big item that we added into Robot was MIMIX transition. We're calling it a transition because what we heard from customers, if I were going to move off MIMIX and I was going to move to another HA solution, I didn't want to jump and rip and replace. We want to make it as easy and as seamless as possible because we know that HA is such an important function in a data center. So we made it a transition so that the customer can go as quickly or as slow as they want, and they can look at just individual libraries in that environment, or they can move everything. So it really was it really is a transition. It makes it easier to do, and it gives you the ability to correct whatever functionality that you want to change in your high availability environment. And then we expanded our sync attributes to have 300 omits and includes. Really, that's just leveraging the power that was already in the operating system already. We did not use that parameter to its highest availability. So we put that out there to what the OS allows us to do. Robot Monitor, new functionality came out just recently with that, 14.2.0. I won't hit on all these, but like Chuck said, the Power Linux support, now we cover all the operating systems that run on Power. So AIX, Linux, and even BIOS. So BIOS is a subset of AIX. So we wanted to make sure that we covered everything that you could have running on Power. So that came out with this last release. The other thing that we heard from customers is that dashboards, having the ability to move through my dashboards, make it as seamless and as easy to do. So we wanted to automate that, and we put it into a slideshow. So those dashboards can move on a big panel up on the screen. I don't have to go up and change what I'm looking at on my dashboards. I can have it move from dashboard to dashboard to give you a better feel and understanding what's going on in your data center. Skip down to the MIMIX monitoring setup. We put some functionality in there. We listened to our customers. It wasn't easy for customers or intuitive for customers to set up the MIMIX monitoring. So we actually added some improvements there, some templates, if you will, to allow you to monitor and set up to monitor your MIMIX environment. Now this is the Performance Navigator. When I talk about installed automatically, we're talking about the host code that collects the data on the IBMI under the covers. So if Robot Monitor were to identify something that went bump in the night, a problem on your system, and it enables you to have collected that data so that I can now look at Performance Navigator to go deeper into that, to look at the historical perspective, really leverage the power of Performance Navigator as a full solution in your environment for monitoring your system. So Navigator gives you the ability to go back and say, hey, what were we doing last week at the same time? What's the difference between those these two time frames? And then the reorg option for reorg physical files is more configurable. Okay. Robot Save 13.03. This is a functionality that we went out and we leveraged our BRMS team. And so now if you don't know, we've been supporting for BRMS for 3 years now. And it's functionality that was part of BRMS. We made it part of Robot Save. We know you've made an investment in Robot Save. Obviously, customers are using Flash Copy, and being able to work with Flash Copy and integrate that into your Save environment and have that information available to save when you do a Flash Copy is important to our customers. And we just, like I said, we were able to leverage the knowledge from our BRMS team to bring that into Robot Save. So that was a nice little feature we added there. Console 7.05. We went out there and added, this has been added to Insight, so you have that web browser capabilities and also the mobile capability. So there's lots of functionality in there. If you haven't seen that yet, I would highly recommend that you take a look at that because it's been a nice feature for Robot Console. And then the resource monitoring, we implemented that, increased that to 1-minute increments. Robot Alert, this came out with, we had the ability to run in an IASP, but it was a manual install into the IASP. So we wanted to automate that install like our other products, Robot Schedule and Robot Console. So we did that, as well as the Office 365 capabilities. Obviously, people are moving to that O365, and we wanted to make sure our product kept up to date, and we came out with that as well. Obviously, this one bullet point doesn't do justice to what Performance Navigator came out with, but that's going to be more when we get into that slide. And then Chuck touched on the Robot brand. If you've ever had to do an upgrade on the products, you know that SysLib is an important part of that update, and everything ties back to SysLib. But in order to do that, you had to bring down Robot RBT Sleeper, which is our subsystem job, and that can cause problems that forces you into a time zone or time window that nothing else is going on in your system. So we've made some provisions to make that easier and less intrusive for you on those updates. And then we want to continue to improve our security. And then finally, Insight 3.04, which is going to be shipping in June. We just came out with a release candidate last week on the last Thursday. It's going to, if you're a Robot Reports user and you're using RBI, Robot Browser Interface, we've now moved a lot of that functionality into Insight so that you have the secure, up-to-date browser interface for Robot Reports. So lots of good stuff going on. Been a good year. Continue to drive these products forward and continue listening to customers.
Wow, Tim, when do you sleep? How do you get it all done?
Luckily, that's not me, Chuck. So, all good.
All right, the director. All right. Well, let's jump into Robot Console and Reports, specifically as it has been added to Insight. If you're not familiar with HelpSystems Insite, that is our web browser interface to a lot of our technologies. So Robot Schedule, Robot Network, Robot Console now, our Automate RPA tool. software deployments, Intermapper, our network monitoring tool, and so forth. A number of them have been added to this web browser technology, which also supports mobile. This technology is free for you to use. You can take advantage of it and allows you to work with, for instance, robot schedule on a mobile device. All right, and in fact, there's some technologies, some functionality, I should say, in Insight that may not even be in your robot schedule GUI, and certainly not your green screen. All right, so specifically, what does Robot Console have to offer in Insight? There's functionality in Insight now for you to see your message centers, for you to reply to messages, to read job logs, and also to see and work with your resource monitors across multiple partitions. So you can see here, I've got 2 systems being displayed, 2 message centers, different sets of messages, and likewise 2 groups of monitored resources showing where I have some issues. I have some jobs that might be active, subsystems down, might have some job queues that are backed up, and so forth. So this came out last fall in Insight, and then Robot Reports, as Tim mentioned, is going to be supported in Insight here in June, and this allows you, when you're authenticated into Insight, so if I authenticate myself as Chuck or Tim signs in as Tim, he will then see his reports in the web interface. You can click on the report to see the most recent version, or you can see the archived versions, and you can, for instance, unarchive a report from short or long-term storage. This technology is designed to replace what you're currently using the robot browser interface for. All right, there's a lot more security features in Insight that aren't in the robot browser interface. And really, that's probably one of the primary drivers behind getting things into Insight, other than the fact that it's also our consolidation tools, multiple products supported in Insight. So here we're viewing a report, and then there's a button in the upper left-hand corner that allows you to download the report in text or PDF format. All right, and I am prepared to do a real quick demo.
Looking forward to it, Chuck. And we can see your
Yeah.
screen already, so looking good.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay. All right, so let's go full screen. So actually what you're seeing across the top, remember Insight is a browser tool. All right, so for instance, here I've got automate workflows. Here I have our deployment manager in Insight showing all the products that we can update from Insight. So if you have Robot Schedule or Robot Console across multiple partitions, a couple of clicks, you can be updating those products. Here's the Robot Schedule Activity Monitor. And you know, this is where you could take advantage of, for instance, diagramming your workflow. So this is technology that you've owned. If you own Robot Schedule, you own this technology to do a job flow diagram as it affects any particular job in your job stream. All right, so we were just looking at this job and the schedule activity monitor and flowing backwards. These are all my dependencies. Various dashboards are supported. You can create a lot of custom dashboards. Robot Console. So here's our Robot Console message center. And in fact, here's a couple of messages that are requiring a reply. All right, so with a click, I could drill into, let's say, the job log. All right, now it's gonna go back to IBMI. It's gonna retrieve the interactive job log, and it's gonna allow you to read that. Okay, so I can see my job log. I can see the message that has the issue. And then I can simply go back and I can reply to that message, and it's going to send the reply back to QSysOper and answer that message. All right. And there we go. And I can simply, for instance, cancel my job, say okay. And what's going to happen is we're going to get confirmation that the message was sent back to the system, and we're actually going to have another message, of course. There's a reply has been sent. And you're going to see here in just a second that that job failed, and you're going to see a terminated message. There it is, job ended abnormally. All right, so just your standard Robot Console message monitoring interception functionality here, but in a browser interface. Remember, this is a browser interface, so I can size it to the footprint that I have that I'm working on. If it's a tablet or iPhone or something like that, I've been sitting on a plane and I've been able to work with this technology. All right, so we're going to go to robot reports real quick. And this is actually a different server, different Insight server, because we have not released the robot reports side of Insight yet. So this is actually a test server, and they promised me that it would be available. So there we go. Okay, so you can see, first of all, that I'm defaulting to robot reports. So that's one of the things you can do when you set up Insight, is you can say, where do you want to be when you sign on? And I've got 4 partitions here with robot reports. I'm going to change the system. I don't want to work with Huey. I want to work with my Wisdom system. All right, and let's go look at the reports. So what reports am I authorized to see on my Wisdom system? So I've got a few reports here. I've got half a dozen reports, and I'm really interested in the Robot Save audit report. You can see it was generated on June 2nd. All right, so if I just click here, it's going to dive into robot reports and pull back the report information for today. All right, and actually for yesterday, last night. This is when my daily backup ran. I could read through this. I could download it. Right now, I'm really not interested in that report though. I need to go back in time, so I want to go to the archive history. And I want to go back, well, I could go back quite a ways. All right, so these are all my daily backup reports. All right, and you can see a lot of these are in short-term archive, so they've been compressed. So I can actually click on the restore button and I can restore from long or short-term archive. All right, but if I have a report online, like here's one from May 28th, simply click on the one that you want, and voila, here's the report from May 28th. This is awesome technology for distributing reports to end users without the need to clog your email with converted reports or potentially lost reports if you're doing any kind of printing. All right.
Hey Chuck,
so
we did miss your left side of your window a little bit. Hey, if you could just pause there, that's great. So you can see the tab there where you got robot reports. And the same would be seen if you go to one of the other windows. We weren't able to see that left side. So like, yeah, all right. Yeah, the left side's missing on your monitor.
Oh, over here, the left side's missing. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
yeah,
let's.
It's an emulation thing. So right there, that's good. And notice how where you click where it says Robot Console, that's where you can see Robot Schedule and the other products that are tied into it. You can see that bar. Just wanted to show people that so that they can see there's a navigation. It's pretty easy to get at and can be reformatted, to your point, to meet an iPad, a cell phone, whatever your browser may be.
Exactly.
Nice
All
work,
right.
Chuck.
Thank you.
And
all right, Tom.
we're back to the presentation. So let's just jump into Robot HA. Robot HA is what we call software-based or logical replication using local and remote journaling, along with the Save Change Object APIs to keep 2 systems in sync or 3 systems in sync, depending upon how you set the product up. We certainly can have one system talking to multiple partitions and updating different parts of data. The nice thing about software-based replication is you can pick and choose what you want to replicate and where you want it to go to and who's going to play in your network. The part about Robot HA and what's new is we've added the ability now to better handle user profiles and how many you can omit and include to be more consistent with the background IBMI commands that include and omit user profiles from save objects. But we've also included the ability to do 34,000 plus objects from an omit perspective. So if you have a lot of objects you want to omit for different reasons, the flexibility is there. The other thing we've done with Robot HA over the last 6 months is authority processing enhancements. Security is important, everybody. We want to make sure we have all the right attributes. We had some enhancements in that area. We also delivered on a MIMIX transition for customers that are looking to move from Mimix to Robot HA. Quite honestly, I've been involved in quite a few of those conversations. A lot of times, if you're looking at that kind of transition, whether it's from iTerra or Quick EDD or iCluster or whatever the product may be, we should really have a discovery call and talk about, do you want to still keep those rules? Because often we find people aren't role swapping and they're uncomfortable with the solution they had. So let's talk about how we can make it easier, simpler, and automate it from a monitoring standpoint too. Other things that we've done, we've helped migrate some customers from 6.1 now to above systems. And we're having discussions around helping people migrate their data to the cloud too. So everything that you see today and hear about, we can always run all the HelpSystems products in the cloud. It's just a matter of thinking about things differently and how we get you there. And Robot HA certainly can help with that. So you can move on. So the MIMIX transition is really, in the proof of concept, we can load Robot HA alongside of MIMIX. We can print out your current rules. We can move your rules over one at a time. We can switch one or two of those data group rules over to Robot HA. And then as you're comfortable, move the rest and then switch over to Robot HA completely. From a monitoring perspective, we have our built-in audits and notifications that are part of the product. And quite honestly, we try to coach people into doing maybe less audits and really more relying on the software and what its purpose is. And because we work a little differently when it comes to reading the audit journal and stuff, it's easier for us to keep up. And then we can use Robot or Halcyon to actually monitor proactively the Robot HA process. So the MIMIX transition, it's a menu hidden into the product that you use to go in and set up and start the process. There's a print, there's an extract, there's transition, and then we call it syncing. Syncing just simply means you've now turned the rule over for that particular library or IFS directory, and Robot HA is taking over keeping that data in sync. Again, remember, we use local and remote journaling, so your data should be up to date in nanoseconds depending upon the speed of the network. And so what's coming next? Robot HA, very strategic product for us. We're very serious about this. We are putting in enhancements into, believe it or not, a green screen. And the reason is because I always refer to this as the work active job of HA. We have a screen inside of Robot HA that is the money screen. And this is it here exactly. And it will get you at everything related to Robot HA from a green screen access. This is where you create your rules. This is where you look at your statuses. This is where you work with journaling. This is where you can end and suspend things that are happening when it comes to replication. And then the next enhancement that we have is the browser-based interface. And so in here, this is going to be out. Both of these will be out around the end of June, beginning of July. In Insight that Chuck went through, you'll be able to establish dashboards. So in the middle here, I have red, green, green, green. I could have a dashboard like that for each of my sources so that I could just quickly look at the screen and I would see, oh, I have a library or potentially libraries that are not keeping up for whatever problem. I could double click on that red and then I could see, is it a apply issue or is it a lag time issue in getting the data from one system to the next. Very exciting.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Another addition to Insight. Okay, so if you do have any questions, I'll just pause for a second. Please feel free to send those questions in. Everybody here is monitoring those questions and we'll talk about them at the end. Let's talk about Robot Monitor. Major update to Robot Monitor 14.2. As Tim mentioned, power Linux monitoring and a dashboard slideshow. Additionally, responding to an inquiry message. All right, so if you're looking at a job and dive into the job log and there happens to be a message waiting, you can answer that message directly from the GUI interface. The MIMIX monitoring setup greatly improved, and a couple additional metrics: disk wait time, disk service time metrics. If you were an old Q system monitor user, there was a system view that had an auto hide feature. All right, you hover on it and the view comes back. So that was added back into the product by popular demand. And a lot of folks don't know that within the product, there is one green screen that really has some good functionality, and it allows you to do things like research object sizes, and do a on-demand reorganized physical file member. And with the configurability of it now, you could do reorg physical file member while active, the while active option. All right. So once again, I'm prepared to do a live demo, gentlemen. So let's see if we can make that happen. Here we go. And I'll go full screen. Tom, how does my screen look?
It looks great.
It looks okay.
I knew you were going to
okay.
ask. Well, no, now it's off the screen.
Oh, yeah, don't go full screen, Chuck.
Okay.
Oh, we're all yelling at you. There you go. Perfect. Yep.
Okay. All right. So if you've never seen Robot Monitor before, Robot Monitor originally started out as an IBMI real-time performance application and system monitoring, telling you everything about your system that you might want to know. If performance goes bad, obviously you can see that we've got a red indicator, and behind the scenes we're also sending out notification via robot alert or a message in a message queue that, you know, there might be some issues. So from here, we can collect that data over time. You can see recent data, you can drill into the data, you can drill then into the jobs that are behind that data. And likewise, we're summarizing this information over a period of days and weeks and months and even years. We've got customers who have run this technology for many, many years. And so one of the enhancements is we added a dashboard slideshow. So you can create multiple dashboards in the product, and then you can tell us how long you want those dashboards to display while the slideshow is going on. And then it's simply a matter of starting the slideshow, which is right there, start dashboard slideshow. All right, and now my 4 dashboards are going to work basically like a slideshow. All right, so they're going to rotate through. All right, now we're on my second dashboard. This is more of my enterprise view, showing probably about 25 different partitions, what their status is. All right, now we're going to the next dashboard, and there's one more.
That's all I can say, Chuck, as well. I've kind of wanted this feature for a while, so I can see customers with large screens in their data center having these rolling things, which is awesome.
Yep, and right here you'll also see Red Hat and you'll see SUSE. Okay, so that's giving you a tip off that we are supporting Linux now along with VIOS. We've been supporting VIOS and AIX for some time, and I'm just going to scroll down. These are all of the various partitions that we are supporting in this instance of Robot Monitor. And you can also group these together. All right, so for instance, if I click on Red Hat, all right, so these are the 4 Red Hat partitions that are part of my group. We can see CPU utilization, disk busy, number of jobs, current processor, current memory. I could drill into any one of these and get this information over time. I could look at things like summary information. And if there are more metrics behind the scenes that are being collected yet not displayed on the screen, you know, that's fine. But if you want them displayed on the screen, it's simply a matter of finding that metric. For instance, this built-in metric for current system storage, drop it into your view. All right, now I have system storage. I can see all my Linux partitions in one view. And behind the scenes, we can also set up things like thresholds. All right, and with those thresholds, we can say, well, how many samples do we want to take? We're sampling this data every 30 seconds, and we can then send out notification via robot alert, or by putting a message in a message queue. All right, I don't have robot alert on this system, but I could put a message in a message queue saying, you know, we've exceeded some kind of threshold. And likewise, there's a dashboard widget that shows thresholds, or you could simply click on the current thresholds and you could see where we're having some kind of a threshold. All right, so if you're a current Robot Monitor user, or you're interested in seeing this technology, I would be more than happy to do that for you. All right, and with that, we're going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to talk about Performance Navigator. Randy.
Yay, thanks, Chuck, and nice update. For those who on the call that are familiar with Performance Navigator, thank you. Of course, as you know, we're constantly upgrading it. Just so that you understand the nomenclature, we're currently at the host code is currently at 19.1 Charlie, and the GUI, the Windows interface, is 19.1 I, and J will be soon to follow as you get our pattern here. And as historically we've always keep adding features and so forth, as we do with all products within HelpSystems, customer feedback, right? So we've created some more flexibility in creating reporting framework. So as most of you know who are customers or who are thinking about it, a lot of customers use Performance Navigator for management reporting. So we created some new frameworks that allow you to have control over what gets reported and the format and so forth. And of course, there's some, in order to do that, we had to create some scripts or HTMLs for you to create that framework. So these are really customized frameworks, and it's both for customers and MSPs. So when I say customers, it could be one machine, or if you're a large customer, you'll see I'm gonna do a brief demo that, we could do it by data center, by frame, by, customer, by, there's a lot of flexibility in this framework. In the next version, which is not in I, but I wanted to put this in there because I think it's important. We did add support for the new NVMe cards, which we are testing as we speak, and hopefully that'll be in J, and so hopefully that'll be out very soon. And of course, when you're looking at a lot of performance analysis and or particular capacity planning has to do a lot with IO. So we keep enhancing the details in IO. So for example, we're looking at we've added the total IOs on our before and after script. So when we're comparing a job or a system, before and after 2 dates or weeks or whatever, we just added that in there just because it's an important thing. As we get more information out of collection services, which everybody knows is our input, we try to take advantage of that. So every time a new release comes out there, they get more information about temporary storage, for example. So in our current day reporting, we've added some more details about storage, temporary storage, about SQL, and about how much that's added to CPU. And I'm sure everybody's familiar when you get into problem determination about the job weight buckets. We've been doing that for a long time, but we've just added, when we create a specific job, we're looking at the weight buckets versus the CPUs. So to make it a little clearer, because it's really complicated sometimes, we concertedly added all the buckets there, so everybody gets to see any of those, I'm going to call it odd buckets that are out there that might be causing an issue. So we've added those to the chart. We've added also system-wide weight buckets by millisecond, not to be confused with percent. So this is just like a raw number. So we've added that because sometimes looking at raw numbers gives you more information than versus looking at percent. And getting back to that disk, we've also we've been able to, in the current day version, and look at the disk response time by reads and writes, which certainly does make a difference because disk IO and disk technology is moving at a rapid pace. And so what I wanted to give you just a real short demo. So what you're looking at here is one of the systems, and what's important to note, particularly, now this happens to be, and this, as you'll notice, we used to look at disk response time in milliseconds. Well, disk is getting so fast nowadays, we've certainly, in this particular graph, we've changed that to microseconds. Now, you'll notice up here it says thousands. So you might have to, this is like, 4,000 to 2,000, but it's getting to that point where milliseconds, sub-millisecond response time on disk is not uncommon these days, particularly, but you really got to break it down into reads and writes. So you can see in this case, and I'm looking at the blue line and the red line, the read and write response times on this particular technology, which happens to be very fast, right? And the white bars are actually the average. So the average I can tell you is about 0.4 or like, 400 microseconds. But you can see the reads and the writes are about the same on this technology. If you look at your internal disk, that is not going to be the case. I mean, your writes are typically way faster than your reads. And depending on what kind of technology you have, whether it's internal or external, that could be the case. So again, we look at this often when we're looking at capacity planning, converting, going from, one technology to another, whether that's on-prem or in the cloud. So that's just one example I wanted to show you that, and a lot of this happens under graph and we get here under current day and disk, and you'll see disk read and response time. So if you are familiar with the product, that's new, and it's certainly important to take a look at that. I did want to show you, and again, this is a short amount of time to give you some feedback, but remember, like I said, a lot of our customers are using this to do management reporting. I'm going to give you just a brief view of what we call the enterprise reporting dashboard. So again, we've built this framework, and it truly is a framework because you do have to build it, but let me just kind of show you an example here. So I'm just going to view this. Now, this would be on your site as a customer. It's really used for, larger customers or customers with, MSPs and so forth, but you can look at like your enterprise reports. So this is for the entire enterprise. So I could look at my enterprise hardware summary if I wanted to, for example. And there's my enterprise hardware summary, for my entire enterprise. So in this case, I got one frame, I got 5 partitions, and we summarize it up, so and so forth. Now, what if I wanted to look at all of my frames? So in this case, this customer, they have, looking at 11 frames. What if I want to look at it by data center? So if I'm only concerned about my Indy data center or my Chicago data center, so this is where these frames are located, right? I wanted to look at it by all customer views. So this is sort of like an MSP, or maybe it's a department. Maybe you're a single customer, but you have, different departments like sales and marketing that have their own machines. So this is just an example. So an example, I'm going to say GE, as an example, this is all of their partitions. Now they could be on different frames, but these are all of the partitions in each one of these frames. So you click on a partition and you're going to see potentially a health check report. And this happens to be a Unix machine. So what this framework gets set, and you'll notice the icons change. So we obviously made it flexible about making sure the logo looks good, and that's what I'm talking about when I talk about, mention about the framework. So this is just a one brief example of how you go about doing this. We certainly ask you to, if you want to contact us, but a lot of that has to do with under edit and enterprise reporting dashboard configuration. So branding, system selection, defining data centers, and then we go off and create that framework for you. And of course, you could save this framework anywhere you'd like. So that's just a brief example of how we've sort of tried to make it easy for you to automate the production and make it easy for anybody to get access to it.
Randy, we've shown the ERD before, and it looks like it's some fantastic improvements.
Yeah, well, thanks, Chuck. And it's like I said, we're constantly tweaking it. And I will say that, thanks to Tim, before we were acquired, which has been almost 2 years, by the way, Tim's team has brought a lot of structure and process to the whole development process. So I'm going to say kudos to Tim. We were sort of like the Wild Wild West before, but now we have a lot more structure, and it's really helped a lot about keeping us, on track and so forth. So thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it with that East Coast accent, Randy. So.
Hey, Randy, thanks for doing that. Having Tim on here and you giving him a big head is why we weren't able to use our web cameras today.
There we go.
So just to this screen here, we're just want to emphasize that we're trying to do a release a quarter, just keep a consistent cadence with this product, and just want to emphasize that We got a lot of stuff to do, a lot of things on our roadmap, so we're constantly going to be looking to improve the product line as we move forward. So it's not something we put on the shelf. We're going to be moving it forward still.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Tim.
Yeah, thank you. Nice demo, Randy. So SysLibe
All right, it's Independence Day, Tim.
Yeah, so let's talk about this real quick. So what we've come out with is we finally pulled SysLibe away from the updates of our products. If you've ever had to go through that process and had to bring down Sleeper just because I'm doing an update to Robot Alert or Robot Console, and really I just had to bring down Schedule because of that, we've wanted to take that apart and make sure that you don't have to do those things. So make it a lot more easier to do and make it a lot more palatable to do an update to our product, because obviously we want our product customers to have the most latest and greatest versions of the product. So as it says right on here, let's work smarter, not harder. And hopefully you can too. So the subsystem can remain active and we can keep that going forward for you. And hopefully this will make it easier for you as you get to experience this. Okay,
Beautiful.
Chuck?
Beautiful. Yeah, I just want to talk quick about education and professional services. We're going to be offering you today a free robot health check. So you pick a partition and pick a couple products. We'll walk you through a health check of those products. We're also doing free automation assessments, free security scans, which we've been doing for a long time. Of course, we have our capacity planning services. And I want to point out that we've got all kinds of IBMI education as well as product education on our website. You can certainly take advantage of that. Some of it's free. There is, maybe a small expense with some of it, but very valuable. Tom.
Chuck, thanks. One of the other valuable sessions we've been having now for quite a few years, Chuck and I host a lot of these, but we have other team members that do it too, are technology update calls. We really steer them towards what you're interested in, sharing with you kind of similar to what we shared today, what's new in the various products. Also just updating you on HelpSystems. We've grown a lot as an organization. We've changed. We're not only IBMI, we love IBMI. All four of us make our living off of IBMI, but the reality is HelpSystems does about 50% of our business in other platforms. So bring along your colleagues. I know sometimes it's painful, but bring along those colleagues from Windows, Unix, and Linux, and we'll update the entire team on what's happening at HelpSystems and share what we do, automation and cybersecurity across the board, not only an IBMI story. So thank you, Chuck.
Okay. Yeah. So we've got our follow-up polling question. Would you like to take advantage of a free robot health check, free automation assessment, free security scan? Are you in need of maybe capacity planning or some performance analysis? Maybe you're looking at moving a partition to the cloud. All right. So we've got a couple of things there that we can talk to you about, not just capacity planning, but with Robot HA, we could help with that migration. And of course, the technology update that Tom Huntington mentioned. Feel free to take take your choice. Don't worry, no pressure. If for some reason you're not able to take advantage of that, we'll make it happen one way or another, and we'll work with your timeline. So Tom, it looks like we have a few questions while we're collecting the polling responses.
You mind if I read off one of them? How will Robot SysLibe Robot Sleeper changes be implemented? Is this a product by product update, or what are we doing?
No, it's not a product by, so I see it's for Johnny. Johnny, it's not a product by product update. It's going to be the first time you update a product, you'll get the SysLibe updates, and that'll start the implementation going forward that you'll now be up to date on SysLibe. So as you bring each product in, SysLibe will already have been updated after that first product. So it's a one-time plan, if you will.
We do have how does the robot pricing work in the cloud? Dynamic sizing of LPARs and the whole thing, Tim, as we've talked many times. My partition could be here one day and there the next. It's really more of, and I think if I paraphrase the question, it's more about how is the licensing going to work, not so much how about the pricing.
So yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, it's always a tough one, right? So Tim's group is working on some licensing that allows you to run the software, let's just say anywhere, and be able to move it around. Typically what's going to come with that though is an enterprise type license agreement or business license agreement, a little different than what we normally do as we license by, serial number, model number, et cetera. We would have to do a contract around the business and come up with a different licensing agreement. And each one of these could potentially be different. Long term, who knows? You might be able to just from a catalog or a cloud provider say, hey, I want to start using Robot HA, and they'll automatically be taking care of it for you. We certainly have those kinds of things on our radar. But right now, it's a kind of customer by customer approach, but we're certainly willing to work with you. Tim, anything to add to that?
No, I think that flexibility, we've listened to customers, we've heard it in pretty much everywhere we go, and understanding that customers need that flexibility as they move to the cloud, or if they're using LPM, any of those technologies, they need the ability to be flexible with licensing, and we're making that happen.
And keep this in mind. We have one of my colleagues here, Randy, who's been working with customers on performance for years and years, and we have to be careful when we go to the cloud. Where is your workload going to be running? You could go from one partition to the next, and your SAN configuration underneath the covers could be different. And guess what? Your performance might be different. So really think this out as you move to the cloud. What's the capacity I need? What's it going to look like as my partitions move around? Those are things that, buyer beware. Be careful.
Yeah, I would say, Tom, that you could take the same data from, like, say, a production system, and if we were going to do an on-prem upgrade, it would be configuration A. If you're going to go to a cloud and you're going to go to vendor A, it's configuration B. If you're going to go to vendor B, it's going to give different configuration. Vendor C, it's going to be different. So it literally depends on, on-prem and cloud, but in the cloud, it not only depends on just the cloud itself, but it depends on the vendor and how they configure the machine, how they price it. There's a lot of things that go into it. So, and of course, the goal here is to make it all the best price performance configuration, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, either way. But it's going to be different based on, all kinds of factors other than, just performance.
And that's where that Performance Navigator services can come into play and really help you out. So you're not guessing, you know what you need. You're going to the cloud provider and saying, oh, that's great, but here's where I'm at. This is a production server. It needs this all the time, whatever this is, memory, processor, disk space, those kinds of things.
Yep. Last call for free robot health check, automation assessment, security scan, tech update, and so forth. We have a couple more questions. One is regarding dashboard rotation or slideshow in Insight, and that's a great idea. I wrote it down, and we were talking about Insight this morning. Got some cool stuff coming down the road, so we'll pass that on for sure. Thanks for that. And Robot Monitor and Performance Navigator combination, separate GUIs, one GUI. Tim, do you want to talk about that?
The idea there is, if you run into a problem with Robot Nav, so no, we don't have the separate GUIs yet. So if you run into a problem where Robot Monitor alerts you of something, and then I come back in and start collecting the data, I miss my opportunity to see that data and what was going on in the system at the time the problem occurred. So that's the reason why we're putting Performance Navigator out there, so that data collection is going on when you encounter an issue and need to do a deeper dive into it. And that's the power of Performance Navigator. As it works today, you'll still need that Performance Navigator GUI to really leverage the power of Perf Nav, but we'll see how that develops over time. But right now, there's still two separate GUI interfaces. But great question, though. Thank you for that.
All right, well, let's we'll finish up our webinar. We're going a little bit long, but I just want to point out that we do a lot of things on IBMI. We've got BI and cybersecurity solutions, document management, and so forth. So if you think you have a need, feel free to give us a call, and we'll talk to you about what we might be able to offer in that space. So thanks everybody for your time today. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the business that you send our way, and go IBMI. All right, Tom, any final thoughts?
Chuck. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Great idea to go IBMI, and don't wait. If you need to talk with us, don't wait. Reach out to any of us or reach out to your regional sales manager and they'll set up a call with us.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks everybody.
Take care.